Welcome to today's Explainer, why 24/7 emergency support matters for high-end aquariums. You know, if you've ever admired a massive, pristine reef tank in a luxury home, or maybe a premium hospitality venue, you probably just saw a beautiful, serene piece of living art. But behind that glass? Well, it's a complex, high-stakes world that requires absolute precision. Today, we're diving into a fascinating topic that merges high-tech engineering with delicate biology. We're looking at these luxury aquatic ecosystems and asking one absolutely critical question: why does round-the-clock emergency support matter so much for these setups? All right, let's jump right in and see why standard business hours just don't cut it for these incredible environments.
So, what exactly happens when the pump stops at 2 a.m.? Picture this scenario for a second. It's 2 a.m. on a Sunday. The house is completely quiet, the lights are off, and suddenly, the main circulation pump on your massive, high-end reef display just grinds to a halt. Or maybe a sensor starts blaring an alarm because the water temperature is plunging. What happens next? I really want you to put yourself in the shoes of an aquarium owner in that exact moment. The clock is ticking, and it is ticking loudly. Do you wait until 9 a.m. on Monday to call a technician? Spoiler alert, if you do, that beautiful ecosystem you went to bed admiring might not be there when you wake up.
To understand why that ticking clock is so incredibly loud, we really have to break a common illusion. What is a high-end aquarium? Well, it's a complex, tightly balanced ecosystem supported by precision hardware like filtration, temperature control, and automated monitoring. It is absolutely not a set-and-forget decoration. We're talking about exact temperature control, precise oxygenation, automated dosing systems, and continuous monitoring. When you look at a high-end aquarium, you aren't just looking at water and fish. You are quite literally looking at a high-tech life support system. Everything has to work in perfect, continuous harmony just to sustain life.
Now, let's talk about some critical events that just don't wait. Heater failures, pump stoppages, power interruptions, system leaks, sudden temperature swings, and sensor malfunctions. These are the absolute nightmares of any aquarium owner, and the brutal truth about these critical events: they do not care about your schedule. They don't politely hold off until Monday morning. In fact, they notoriously seem to strike late at night or right in the middle of a long holiday weekend. And when one of these events hits, the water parameters begin to shift immediately. The stakes skyrocket, and the tension just builds with every single passing minute.
Which brings us to a really crucial idea. The gap between noticed and resolved can determine whether a tank stabilizes or collapses. I want you to really absorb that for a second. That gap, the time between noticing a problem and actually fixing it, that is the entire battleground. When minutes matter, waiting for the next morning to roll around is often the tragic difference between a full recovery and total biological loss. Early intervention means you can isolate a problem before the biological stress spirals totally out of control. It means you can rapidly adjust flows to stop oxygen depletion or take immediate steps to reduce the ecosystem's exposure to deadly contaminants.
This extreme urgency completely changes how we should view support models: standard hour support versus 24/7 emergency support. If you rely on standard business hours, your safety net is entirely dictated by the clock. If something critical breaks on a Friday night, you're waiting days for help. In the world of high-end aquariums, that delay isn't just a minor inconvenience, it's incredibly expensive and sometimes entirely irreversible. Contrast that with 24/7 emergency support. This round-the-clock response is specifically built for crises. It allows owners to reach an expert immediately and begin guided troubleshooting while the system is actually still within salvageable parameters. It's the critical difference between crossing your fingers and actively managing a crisis.
Because here's the reality. Accurate triage prevents well-intentioned but damaging random resets. Imagine it's midnight, an alarm is shrieking, and you have literally no idea why. Is it a heater fault? Is it a controller error? Did a snail just crawl into a vital sensor? Without real-time expert guidance confirming whether a failure is equipment-based or environmental, panicked owners naturally resort to randomly unplugging things, flipping switches, or tinkering with valves. You know, I've heard horror stories of owners trying to fix a faulty temperature alarm by accidentally shutting down the main biological filter. A reliable live emergency service prevents those panic mistakes by accurately diagnosing the real root cause in real time.
And why are those random resets so incredibly dangerous? Well, it's because of the deeply vulnerable ecosystem we are trying to protect. High-value fish, exotic corals, sensitive invertebrates, and balanced microbiological systems. We aren't just protecting glass and plastic here. We're talking about incredibly sensitive life, like exotic corals that can suffer rapid tissue necrosis and die off in a matter of hours if the temperature spikes. This is a massive financial and biological investment. When a system fails, these living creatures experience immediate, severe stress.
That stress compromises their immune function, halts their growth, and can trigger devastating cascading issues like massive algae blooms or a total loss of chemical balance.
So, when you're on the phone with a 24/7 support team in the middle of the night, the immediate goal isn't necessarily a perfect, permanent fix right that second. The goal is stabilization. Take a breath, slow down. Your emergency mitigation priorities are actually pretty straightforward. Step 1, manage oxygen levels. Step 2, control temperature ranges. And Step 3, address any contamination risk. Remote emergency support expertly guides you through these exact steps to dramatically minimize harm to the ecosystem stability. You're really just trying to hold the line. You keep the biology safe and stable until full, permanent repairs can be completed.
But what happens when the problem exceeds what you can realistically do over the phone? Well, a premium 24/7 service has a clear, immediate escalation path: remote troubleshooting, dispatching technicians, and coordinating parts. It doesn't just end with remote help. From that initial phone call, the process moves seamlessly to getting technicians directly to the site and rapidly coordinating the necessary replacement parts. This clear, unbroken path is absolutely vital for high-end owners because it dramatically reduces the time the system remains only partially functional. By escalating quickly, you ensure continuity of care and completely avoid the secondary damage that always comes from prolonged instability in the water chemistry.
Which brings us to the immense power of continuity: specific equipment brands, monitoring platforms, dosing schedules, and prior fault history. When you have a dedicated service partner, they don't walk into a 3 a.m. crisis blind. They already maintain deep knowledge of your specific setup. They know exactly which automated platforms you use. They have your precise dosing schedules on file, and crucially, they know your tank's prior fault history. Under intense pressure in the middle of the night, this continuity is an absolute game changer. It drastically improves the accuracy of their response and entirely removes the learning curve. They aren't guessing what pump you have. They know your system inside and out. Ultimately, this forces us to completely reframe how we look at this entire service. 24/7 support functions as an insurance layer for both your equipment and your biology. It's really not an optional luxury add-on to your standard maintenance package. It is an essential insurance policy that gives aquarium owners a completely dependable partner exactly when conditions deteriorate the fastest. It guarantees faster action, it ensures much smarter, calmer troubleshooting, and above all, it gives your incredibly valuable ecosystem the absolute best possible chance of a full recovery when disaster eventually strikes. Which leaves us with a vital question for anyone managing a luxury aquatic ecosystem. Are you waiting for a crisis to evaluate your emergency support? Honestly, the absolute best time to evaluate your safety net is before you actually fall. Don't wait until the water chemistry is crashing and the hardware is completely failing. Take a practical step today. Confirm your coverage details, understand the exact response expectations, and map out your escalation procedures right now. Because when that pump stops in the dead of night, you want to know exactly who is answering the call. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.